So today we are looking at the devil. The transition from temperance to the devil involves moving from a state of harmony and balance to confronting our shadow self. This is a necessary stage of the journey as it challenges us to face and hopefully overcome our inner demons and unhealthy attachments, as well as our temptations and the darker aspects of our world. So just like in the temperance card, where I mentioned that it can indicate a more established connection to our higher selves, and about how it's important to allow our higher selves to guide us. In the devil card, this would bring up the importance of acknowledging and having an understanding of our shadow self. If we ignore or don't embrace our shadow self, then we risk then allowing these uncontrolled or unacknowledged aspects of ourselves that don't get seen or don't get heard to control us unconsciously, which then can lead to destructive behaviours or just unresolved inner conflicts, which in turn then means that we still do not, we're not able to grow and live a completely fulfilled life. So the devil card will speak about how shadow work and that connection or acknowledgement, at least, with our shadow self is important, just like in the temperance, how the higher self is important. So we're going to get into the symbolism on this card. Before we do, the key themes of the devil card would be temptation and a feeling of being trapped, illusion and powerlessness, the shadow self, and materialism and excess. So getting into the symbolism of the card, looking first at the devil. So the devil, often seen as a representation of the god Pan, as he's a goat-like horned creature. He represents the darker, more primal aspects of human nature, including base desires, instincts and temptations. It also would signify the illusion of being trapped or bound by these forces. The inverted pentagram at his forehead here often would symbolise a perversion of spiritual principles, focusing on materialism and base instincts rather than higher spiritual pursuits. I've had to cover the human figures down here because they don't have clothes on, but if you can hopefully see, they are chained here, and the chain, which you see it starts here, it chains them all the way up to the neck, which is obviously under the tape. But the chains would symbolise bondage and entrapment. However, these chains are actually loose, and so this indicates that the bondage is often self-imposed or illusory. It suggests that the individuals have the power to free themselves if they choose to do so. So now actually looking at the human figures, they're depicted with small horns and they both have tails. Again, I apologise, but I've had to tape over the nakedness. But they do have a tail each, one from the male and one from the female. And again, also the fact that they are chained here to this pedestal that the devil sits on. They're often seen to represent Adam and Eve, which symbolises the fall into temptation and the loss of innocence. Their tails and their horns suggest that they have succumbed to their base instincts and desires. On the male figure here, represented as Adam, his tail, at the end of the tail, he has a flame. And the Eve figure here, her tail at the end is a bunch of grapes. So the flame represents fiery passions and desires, while the grapes symbolise indulgence and hedonism. Together they highlight different forms of temptation and excess. The background of this card, very different to the other cards. It's very dark and black. And this represents the unconscious and hidden fears, indicating a state of ignorance or a lack of awareness about one's true situation. The devil here, he has a pair of bat wings, and the bat wings are associated with darkness and nocturnal creatures, symbolising hidden fears and the darker aspects of the psyche. Still looking at the devil here, his right arm here is held up in a gesture of blessing, and his left arm here is pointing down, holding a torch which is in a downward position. So the gesture mimics a parody of divine blessing, suggesting a false sense of power or authority. The downward pointing torch represents bringing light into the dark, but in a distorted way, illuminating base desires rather than higher truths. So that's the symbolism of the devil card, and later today I will post about the interpretations if it was to come up in a reading.